Could the US dollar be overthrown in January? We're going to talk about that today. Hello, welcome to The Finance Therapist. I'm Michelle Pava, and today we're going to be diving into the world of BRIC investments. Now, if you are not used to investments, I still want you to stay tuned. I'm going to break this down. And if you listen to this podcast, even if you're not really aware of investments in general, you're going to understand BRIC investments better than most people. So I don't want you to worry. It's going to be broken down in the most simplest way possible so you can decide if it's something that you want to explore further. And I think you should, because January might be pivotal. So what is BRIC investing? Well, think of it like gardening. BRIC stands for Brazil, Russia, India, and China. These are four big countries known for their potential when it comes to investments. Imagine you have four pots, and each pot represents one of those countries. When you invest in BRIC, you essentially are putting your money into these pots, hoping that they grow over time. So why does this matter now if they've been around since 2009? And it's been a struggle, right? You haven't heard a whole lot about them. They've been growing very slowly. They're very volatile. They are going up and down all of the time. So what exactly is the big deal now? Well, just a few days ago, the top emerging economies have all taken a major step in expanding their reach and influence in the announcement that 6 more nations have been invited to join as new members. We need to pay attention because the BRICS bloc has definitely expanded and they're taking major steps in reach and influence. So just to go back a little bit, we have bloc, which is made of BRIC, which is Brazil, Russia, India, and China, adding South Africa. So it's BRICS. But that's not all. They have now invited new members. And let me just tell you that there is a waiting list of members and applications. I do not think that the United States is one of them. However, they are looking at inviting, and I think that it's going to be that these countries are going to be full members as of January 1st. Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. So that is a large coalition of developing nations that definitely have an interest in the world's agenda. Now, I don't think anyone is 100% sure of what the criteria is, but apparently the latter countries that I mentioned were considered because of principles, standards, criteria, and procedures of the BRICS expansion process. What that means, I don't know, because no one really knows the details of this, but because they didn't provide more details about specific criteria, it leaves us wondering, is there something that they don't want to tell us? So it's very important to understand that sometimes what you don't know is a key to how important something might be. Or it could be smoke and mirrors, we don't know. That being said, we do know that BRIC investments are in fact rising. Something of note is that China recently brokered sort of the reestablishment of connection and ties between Saudi Arabia and Iran, which is pretty notable. And that is a role that traditionally the United States would have had. So it almost looks like the United States is being pushed out a little bit, which should be a little unsettling for those of us in the United States. Also of interest is that India recently signed an agreement that they were not going to trade in a currency that even connected with the US dollar. So there's that. So what are some of the commonalities? You might say that they're very Middle Eastern focused, or you might say they're non-energy producing countries, or you might say that they are focusing on their economy's function in a different way, where maybe they don't want secondary collateral damage. There's just a lot going on with the different countries. So I can't really say that I personally see something where I see a commonality with all of them. I could look at a few of them and say, okay, I can see where these two or these three are similar, but I can't look at this big picture and see, Brazil and Iran, for instance, how they might be similar. And I'm sure that's just my limited world knowledge. But at the same time, I think that generally we can all agree that it looks like there's new avenues for trade, and it looks like the United States is not a part of that pathway. So going back to investing in BRIC, which is BRIC, why would you want to do this? Well, let's keep the gardening analogy going, shall we? So each of these pots has a unique plant in them, and they grow differently. So investing in BRIC allows you to diversify your investments, just like having a garden with different types of plants is more advantageous. So if you just have one garden of zucchini, then you're going to have just zucchini. But if you have a garden that's diversified, you're going to be more nourished. You have to think of investments that way. Plus, these countries that I've mentioned are like new exciting parts of your garden that have a lot of untapped potential, and there's a lot of opportunity there to potentially make some money. But here's the thing. Just like gardening, which doesn't always end up well, there are risks. So for instance, in gardening, you need to have the right soil, you need to have the right weather, and you need to tend to that garden. So we have to look at, are these BRICS actually going to go somewhere? Or are they going to keep going up and down and just sort of be this group of countries that can't get it going? Because sometimes some of these countries are struggling on their own as well. So how much is this actually going to be helpful? And what is the strategy? Again, we don't know 100% what that strategy is of why some of these countries are being invited and why some are just sitting on a waiting list with their application in. So each country has its own unique economic and political condition. So it's like learning about the specific needs of each plant in a garden. So you need to do your homework. So it's not without challenges, and it's not without risk at all. So to sum it up, I would say that BRIC investing is like planting seeds in different pots, each representing a different BRIC country. And we're going to have more and more countries in that BRIC garden. It offers diversity and it offers growth and potential, but it's not without risk. And it's like having an exciting new garden to tend to. So if you find this intriguing, then I encourage you to explore it further and to see if BRIC investments might be a good fit for you. You can, if you go to a place like Robinhood online, you can invest as little as $10 and just see what happens. You don't have to have a lot of money to invest in these. Of course, the more the merrier. But at the same time, if you just want to try your hand at it and see. Now, I want you to know that if you're not used to investing, especially with EFTs and so forth, or BRIC investing, it could look overwhelming. So you might look at something and it's over $500 a share, basically. But you are able to put $10 into that and you'll get a portion of that share. So it trades a little differently than your typical NASDAQ, okay? So remember that the goal here between you and I is to provide you with a springboard just so that you can get your curiosity open and tantalized so that you can have your own BRIC investments that might be exciting for you. And it might just be an interesting opportunity, or it might be essential for you to learn. And the more you learn now, while it is still before January, and depending on when you're listening to this, right now I'm recording this in August, and it was just 3 days ago that these other countries were invited in, and we were aware that we are going to be looking at a very large coalition of the bloc, and you need to make an informed decision. So even though investing might feel like it's over your head, and I'm definitely speaking to those who feel that way. I know some of you can run circles around me with investing, but if you are someone who feels intimidated by investing, just go over to Robinhood or anywhere that you might actually purchase your EFTs, read up a little bit, and just throw $10 if you have $10 in. Just throw $10 in and see what happens. Because if the dollar, the United States dollar, goes down and you don't have anything else, you're going to be in a very bad space. So at least if you invest in BRIC, then you're going to actually have something that's worth more than the dollar if the dollar actually does decline. And we don't know if it will. I will tell you that they've been saying that for 20 years. I think that, you're going to have this international, one space, one currency, and the dollar will mean nothing. They've been saying that for 20 years. At the same time, we have to look that the dollar is declining. So we do have inflation and we do have economic crisis, which is why, to me, this makes this even more eye-opening, something where we need to sit tall in our chairs and pay attention, because as we are in this inflation economic crisis where the dollar is becoming less and less valuable, and we have a group of countries who are not inviting us, but they are creating a larger coalition, we might need to pay attention to that. And this may be maybe just me being a little bit too worrisome. I don't know what you want to call it, a little too stressed over it. But for me personally, I am going to be investing more in BRIC than I have in the past. Because, and you also want to make sure, I just want to state, you want to invest only what you can afford to lose. So when I say invest $10, if you don't have $10 to invest, then don't invest it. You have to really think about that, and you have to talk to somebody local to you. Me personally, I'm going to be investing more. So I hope that you have learned a little something about BRIC investments and that I have simplified it for you. But it's essential to learn more and to make informed decisions for yourself. Thanks for tuning in to The Finance Therapist. I'm Michelle Pava. Until next time, happy investing.